I guess the working group had 2 1-hour meetings. We got through it really quickly, and there was wording to say we had to consult with the heritage people. We've done that. Why don't we just wrap it up and get it done? We've clearly said to them what we're going to do. But anyway, I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job.
So we can do that. I'd probably use the word it will be prudent to do that, just so that, and it's very unlikely so that we don't get challenged. So, but like I said, I don't see this as a big elongated process or anything like that. I think it'd be quite efficient.
Right, any other questions? Councillor Gallagher.
Yeah, as I understand it, the working group in terms of 11 recommended those 3 bullet points. It also recommended the item under 20 in terms of the transfer, and also it recommended vegetation treatment, management, nothing massive, but just appropriate vegetation. And it had, which I won't talk about in public session, it obviously had some recommendations in terms of the existing tenancy and the conditions of that tenancy. So that's what the working group did. Can I just get a clarification, I guess, and the working group was a mix of elected members and staff. So that's what the working group resolved. Since then, do I take it, if I've got this right, you're also recommending a non-comprehensive review, management plan, and you're also going to come back to us once within the operational realm, you're determining whether or not Beale Cottage goes from the Waikato, if it transfers from the Waikato Museum to Parks and Gardens, and obviously when you do that, then obviously we do the raison d'etre, if you like. I mean, the working group's had a view, but what I'm reading in this report is, in fact, that's not necessarily, obviously not determined at this stage. Is that?
Well, I think, Councillor Gallagher, that it's probably a bit of a no-brainer that it sort of transfers to Sally's team, and obviously, we work. The organisation works, right across each other, and so it's not that the museum staff who might have some expertise in this area wouldn't still be involved, but Sally's team pretty much manage, assets right across the network, and they've got a person who's actually trained in the residency.
So what I understand in terms of 20, you're noting the recommendations.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a bit of discussion to have. What the Deputy CEO has indicated a sense of relaxedness about that recommendation, but obviously the detail and the when and the how will be appropriately determined. You're telling me, obviously, that the immediate issue around some of the vegetation stuff will be sorted in fairly short order. That's an immediate maintenance issue. We're upholding the 3 bullet points on item 11. So the only thing that is remained, if I understand this, please forgive me, whether or not we are supportive of this non-comprehensive review management plan, and what you're saying is that's a fairly straightforward process. So yes. It doesn't cut across what we've been trying to do as a working group?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a couple of questions. Did the working group determine that the cottage was genuinely better kept as a residential property? Was that, rather than changing the purpose, was that was a genuine conclusion that the working group came to?
Yeah, it was.
So because these processes around reserves are huge, so the requirement, so there was no weight then given to the working group's conclusion around if we change the purpose and how significant that consultation is. So that wasn't a barrier for their final recommendation to keep the purpose as it is.
No.
I mean, they obviously knew about it, but it wasn't a barrier for the reason they came up with their recommendation.
No. One of the other considerations with that is in the council's heritage plan, one of the sections talks about following there's a group of guidelines to follow, and one of them is that the original use of a heritage building should be retained whenever possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions? No? Okay, so do I have a motion? There is a staff recommendation on page 205.
I'll move.
Moved by the Deputy Mayor. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by,
So
Can we
what
put a-
date?
Yeah, can we put a date on it to come
Date?
back?
And
yep. Date.
Was it reasonable for a month's time?
I would prefer September rather than
September?
August.
It'll be the full council meeting it comes back to, will it?
Yeah, I'm not sure when the next S&P committee is.
August. End of,
August. It'll be full council then,
Yeah.
September.
So adding in, sorry Lance, what was that? So the September,
Full council meeting.
council
Madam Chair.
meeting. September 2016 ordinary council meeting, okay, yeah. So, mover and seconder happy with that? Yep. Okay, debate. Sorry, Deputy Mayor, you moved it, didn't you? Yeah. Would you like to speak?
No, look, I'm happy that the work's been done and we're going to have a further non-comprehensive review come back. Councillor Geller has already talked about the more urgent work, which was getting the greenery back under some degree of control. And I'm looking forward to how the public might be able to have reasonably regular access during the summer months, and how we might use the lawn for music at Beale Street or whatever people could come up with. So thanks for the work that Councillor King and Councillor Gallagher did. Appreciate you undertaking that role.
The Mayor and then Councillor Gallagher.
yeah, look, I'm going to support this recommendation, obviously, but I do want to make some comments about process. I've just looked at the minutes, and I guess this is a timely reminder why reports should set out the resolution that was made by the council or the committee, because it is more than undertake a preliminary assessment. It's to develop for consideration and ratification by this committee recommendations to council in respect of its management plan review obligations under section 41(4). Now, I've looked at 41. I think it's just that this council has worked so hard to kind of demystify these processes and to talk to the people that matter early, so that their involvement in what we end up with, is not a surprise to anyone, and they've helped develop it up. And as I understand it, that is what has happened. Now, I'm pleased that it's going to come back in September, because the way I read the legislation is that a non-comprehensive review, actually what it just says is you've got to keep your plans updated and keep your eye on them. Now, this one was in the bottom drawer, and it's actually a really good document. It actually covers some really good things, right? And when you go and visit Beale Cottage, it's a great place, and sadly, in my view, it's been forgotten, and it needs to have some prominence in the city for its historical, what it represents. It should be in it, and it hasn't been. But that management plan covers all that, and it just hasn't been implemented. So it's a point, Chair, that I raise consistently, and you're going to not hear my voice about this very soon, and I guess people will be glad about that. But I do think that more care is needed to just challenge and look carefully at what is it that we are required to do. How is the best way to go about doing that, instead of, just rolling out the stock standard. It disappoints me, actually. And the reality is no one would have even known about it, this management plan, if a few questions hadn't been asked in the Hamilton East neighbourhood plan about what's happening to Beale Cottage. Do we have a plan for it? And that's how this came to surface. Interesting. I'm glad it's going to come back very shortly with, I guess, a few word tweaks. Great.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Gallagher.
Yes, a compliment, the Chair, Councillor King, who no doubt will speak briefly to this. I think the issue is short-term, medium-term, long-term, and I think short to medium-term is around the issue of the current situation in terms of the tenancy and the reality of the advantage of having someone who's actually resident there. I think the second thing in terms of the Hamilton East Plan, the Deputy Mayor spoke well in terms of starting to be more proactive and opening up the garden and the lawns for more regular public interaction. One of the things which we're going to be talking to about the Hamilton East Plan is we're going to be right across is that intersection. There's, you know, so that we don't have the Oz Roads that does its thing in terms of the and you know the intersection point in terms of the traffic management. So Beale Cottage is absolutely on the map, and I think in summary really is where we've landed is not necessarily the big long-term vision, all right? And the long-term vision may very much the dedicated, dare I say it, museum-type function centre, but the medium-term vision I think very much is looking at some reality now of existing occupation, which has got a really good caretaker role, but starting to move the line around public access and, you know, community access more. But I am really keen in a short period of time to see some sort of appropriate vegetation and some appropriate maintenance and garden management. And with respect, I don't want to necessarily wait until we get a report, you know, down the track. I think there's things that can be done now. And I don't know, I'm not wanting to speak for Councillor King, but he may have alternative views.
Thanks, councillor. Further speakers?
Councillor King, I thought.
Councillor King, of course.
We genuinely, firstly I'd like to thank Councillor Gallagher and our staff who worked with us, and there was
Cherie.
a planner with us as well, wasn't there?
Yes.
Who was that?
Jamie Sell.
Jamie, yeah. So, and I felt like we really worked well together, and we really did seriously consider the options that are bulleted on point 8, and we took no consideration into whether we would require the Minister of Conservation to get involved if we were going to sell it, and we didn't take any consideration as whether it was going to be a non-comprehensive review or a comprehensive review, depending. So our outcomes weren't. The outcome that we've come to wasn't shaped around how hard it would be to get there. It was actually the group moved really quickly and really worked well together, and everybody agreed with where we got to. So I just thank everyone, and yeah, I think this is a really good outcome. It protects the property. It's going to enhance the property come the next long-term plan when we will be looking for money to do this internal work to bring it closer to its original state. And yeah, so I think it's a really good outcome.
Right, further speakers? I'll just make a few comments, and I'm obviously going to be alone in this. I'm actually disappointed in the outcome. I'm going to support this, but I am disappointed. And I think given the historical value of the cottage, I think we should start the process now around changing its purpose. I think it would be much better suited as to do that as a community, whether it houses a community heritage group or historical group or tours or education or an art community group. I think we're missing an opportunity. And given the next items, the Hamilton East neighbourhood plan, which says in that plan that one of those goals is around living heritage, which, and I quote, says to enhance and integrate heritage activities in Hamilton East. I think we're just missing an opportunity, and I'm quite disappointed about that. And I'm quite, I'm interested that the Heritage Advisory Panel was quite happy with this outcome as well. But I mean, I appreciate possibly we're going to get where I would like to head towards now in the long term. So I'm averagely comfortable with that, but I was expecting something a little bit different given we're moving towards the Hamilton East plan as well. So those are my thoughts. Any further speakers? Deputy Mayor, would you like a right of reply? No. Okay. So we're up on the board. We'll just do those on the voices. All those in favour? Are there any against? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Cherie. All right, item 12, Hamilton East Neighbourhood Plan, and this is on page 181. And we've got Julie and Rachel. Welcome. You can take the report as read. Is there anything that you needed to highlight in the report?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to remind Council that this neighbourhood plan was initiated in December 2015, where there was a councillor working party, including Her Worship the Mayor, Councillors Gallagher, Pascoe and Chesterman, who have been working on this development of the plan. We've been also working very closely with a focus group, which is a selection of people who have businesses or live or have an interest in Hamilton East. So the purpose for the plan coming to the committee today is to ask the committee to approve the plan so we can take it out for a consultation period. This is a non-statutory plan, so we can have a variable consultation period. We're not required to have a full month's consultation period. Happy to take questions.
Great, thanks, Julie. Right, questions? Councillor Mallett.
Thank you. Can you clearly outline what the goals of the plan are?
Yes, on page 12, there is a plan outcome that Hamilton East is a popular, attractive character suburb that remembers its history. And there are 4 themes that have been orientated towards achieving that outcome.
Okay, so that's Hamilton East Village, connections, living heritage, active places.
Yes.
Okay, so Hamilton, and I've read the plan, so what does Hamilton East Village mean?
Hamilton East Village is, when we talk about it, it is effectively the area from Beale Street, running all the way through Grey Street, down to sort of the past
Wellington Street.
Wellington Street to Wellington Street.
So Wellington East Village is simply the lines on the map, isn't it?
Yes. Well, a subset on the map. So if you look at the map.
Yeah, but it's delineated by a space.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So how can that be? So that's the theme. Okay. What does connections mean?
Connections. When we talked with the community, they raised a number of appropriate concerns around connections. So connection means both connections to the environment, so connections between the village to the river, the village to the parks, connections for people to move around the community, so that was particularly walking and biking, and then also traffic connections as well.
Okay, and living heritage?
Living heritage was a recognition that Hamilton East is our oldest suburb, and that we wanted to make sure that that was valued. And so there were a number of projects there, including Beale Cottage, that looked at how do we make heritage something that people can touch and feel and see and be involved in.
Okay, and active places is parks.
Parks, and
parks.
particularly the connection down to the river, so the river walkways, the Wellington Street Bridge, and most importantly also through to the gardens.
Was there any concern given to making a living business?
So within the village there are a couple of projects in there that we looked at, which was around the business development, the business association being assisted to get underway again. We also made a comment in there about development sites that, there's the opportunity for those to be supported. So, and then also the brand identity, which is very important for some areas of that village, about how do they create a brand that attracts people. Hamilton East is very much seen as a destination shopping centre. It doesn't have any big box type shops or a supermarket to attract people. People come there for specific purposes. And so in terms of making a living in that area, people coming specifically for those businesses.
Just expand on that. So, like you used to say, I've always thought a destination area was where there is some big boxes and some big anchor tenants, they're sometimes called, but that's a slightly different context. But that's the kind of thing I was thinking of. Hamilton East, other than the Waikato Regional Council and what?
So a couple of examples, Duck Island ice cream.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Duck Island ice cream. So that is a destination that people go to. It's the only place that you can get that specialist product.
Yeah.
Another extreme, for those who have children, Collins Footwear is the only place in Hamilton that you can buy shoes for Di's school. So destination shops.
And with all due respect to those two businesses and your judgment, that's a very precarious thing to base an economy on,
Yeah.
an ice cream shop and a shoe shop.
Yeah.
Okay, so what evidence have you got that this plan will bring those goals together, which is that it's a popular and attractive character suburb that remembers its history?
So we don't have evidence until we can actually put some actions in place, and then hopefully they will produce the outcomes that we want. And at that point, we'll be able to start monitoring from once the plan's adopted. We'll start monitoring so we can see if we can evidence that we're getting the outcomes we expect.
Okay.
And so in the last pages, there are some measurements in there that are targeted, and one of them is around GDP.
Yep.
That will help us measure
currently
those.
the GDP
So they're on page 28.
Yeah, so currently the GDP is slightly below the average for the city, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so you're correct. There is no evidence that this is going to work. So you look at when has this been tried elsewhere, and I look immediately to the CBD, and with all due respect to all the efforts of the councils for the last 15 to 20 years, every rejuvenation plan that has been led by the council has failed. So I am very sceptical that this one will have any, and with all due respect to the work that's gone on, it's once over lightning is not right, but there's no grunt in it. It's all, speaking to the history, and, it's all the flowery words that comes out of Department of Fantasy words, but there's no guts in this thing. And it concerns me that there are, that again, we're going to undertake a plan, and I dare say spend a significant amount of money and raise an awful lot of hope without any evidence that it's going to work. So that's my take on it. Thank you.
Councillor Young?
Yep, thank you. Thanks to all the working group members. Actually, I like the plan. But I do have a question about Still Park Playground. So it's going to be a neighbourhood playground. It's not a destination playground, right?
That's correct.
Is it because it's too close to Hamilton Garden, or the Still Park one?
Yes, yes. It was always nominated to be a neighbourhood playground. It wasn't on our destination playground.
And it's good to see for junior and senior play area and some exercise as well, right?
Yes.
And also at the last paragraph, it seems it's going to be like a destination and passive observation, of the rest of the park. So is it you're going to incorporate some of the idea of the passive park people? They've been looking at that. Would that be incorporate some of their ideas in this park?
Sorry, Councillor, can you clarify for me?
Oh, the
Sorry.
page 27 in the plan, that's the Still Park playground, the last paragraph.
Yes.
Because once you have that passive observation of the rest of the park, so it will link to some sort of idea about passive park.
So what that means in here is that, you've got the mums and the children who are now playing in the park, and so there's more people there, and so the crime rates, there's that observation, so they are likely to move on, those sorts of people.
Yep. Okay, thanks. And also the playground will be installed in 2016. Do you reckon the time frame is right?
Yes,
After
the
all the
playground
consultations, everything?
was already on our work program, and so we delayed it so it's aligned with this plan to make sure it supports the plan.
Thank you.
I'm just going to sneak in a question before I go back to Councillor Mallett, just on that. Over the years, and I think Councillor Gallagher will recall this, we've had, certainly so many submissions through various things we've submitted on, like the alcohol, public, alcohol,
Psychedelic
local,
drugs.
yeah, just everything. And particularly the Hamilton East Community, what are they called? Hamilton East Community, whatever they're called.
Hamilton East Committees
Has
Trust.
lobbied us to change the purpose of the park to a community park, because they've also had over the years, I think they've had difficulty in organising some events. So was there discussion in the working group around changing the purpose of that park to enable it to fit more in with a community park?
There was lots of discussion about Steel Park and the
Yeah.
perceptions around Steel Park. So people can, so at the moment it has a combined type of purpose. There are sports fields that people can book and they are accessible through council's booking process. And then there's also the open passive area. So there was a lot of discussion around it, but we didn't actually look at whether we should change the purpose of the park.
So did that Community East group not have that specific conversation though around, did they not lobby for that? I'm surprised that they didn't.
No, they lobbied more around their concerns about the perception of the park and people in the park at various times of the day, particularly around the consumption of alcohol and the visibility of that in the park.
If I could help,
Oh, your worship?
as I chair this group, the park is very, very popular in the weekend. It's oversubscribed in the weekend and you can't move. There's lots of sports activities and
Yeah.
what follows those sports activities is recreational activity where people kind of, they sit around in their chairs actually, they do. And that was one of the reasons why when we discussed the kind of alcohol ban thing, because initially we thought there might be some concerns about that. People didn't want that changed. They didn't want a 24-hour ban because after a lot of those games, people kind of chill out and they have a family atmosphere. And in summertime, on Saturdays and Sundays, it is actually very, very busy. The issue about during the week was more the subject of discussion, and the current playground is over the other side. So if you're standing where Duck Island Ice Cream is, the current playground's over in that corner, far corner. So moving the playground to opposite Duck Island and around where the entry to the sort of shopping area is was considered a major kind of activation idea, and also to encourage more families to be there and chill out and all the rest of it. And that also, that group, Angela, fed back about, fixing up the vegetation around there. Some of the businesses wanted to be able to put chairs and tables out there, and that was all regarded as good, actually, and we've encouraged that. So at the moment, you can do other things on that park, but on the weekend, it really is very popular.
Yeah,
So it was really during the week.
yeah.
Yeah, so, and we went and looked in the buildings there, the pavilion and that,
Yeah,
needs some work. Yeah, very unattractive.
yeah.
Wasn't it, Martin? Yeah, very unfortunate. Although we did get feedback that the public toilets are, people like those public toilets because they, even though they're old, they're clean, they're in a really good location on a high-profile road, and a lot of people do use them. So it's interesting. Mums with kids, and stuff like that, they like it.
They're kind of our only destination toilet, aren't they?
Some ways, but they're actually very popular. And we looked at all that stuff. They were very clean and well maintained, if not old. But and that was seen as really important because there's lots of families around there and lots of kids go to that area. So the trust didn't really raise that specific issue.
And maybe the discussion around improving the amenity and the facilities around the park and the vegetation
That was a big issue,
was
making it nicer, because
yeah.
it's all a bit
probably solved that issue for them.
probably well.
Councillor Mallett and then Deputy Mayor.
So, and I think Julie's kind of covered a lot of what I was going to say, just that be wary, councillors, that is a very busy park. I mean, not just
Yeah.
on the weekends certainly, but even, I've played
Summer
business
nights.
out, there's cricket there, there's touch rugby there, there's an awful lot of organised or semi-organised sport that goes on there. Yeah, I've done a bit of that too, Gordon. But I think there is scope for some sort of additional investment. Right, that's quite close to where the I forget what it's called. It's like there's the toilets there, and then there's sort of a mini not a grandstand.
They call it
pavilion.
They call it
Pavilion. Yeah,
yeah.
sorry. Yeah,
needs
yeah,
work,
yeah,
Gary.
yeah.
It needs,
Pardon?
it's pretty yuck. It needs.
Yeah. And that's just a function of being old. Yeah. But the trees down there are.
Speaking from
Is that
experience,
applied
are
to
you?
humans?
Yeah.
Is that advice, Gary? Is it?
Got to know your limitations, don't you? But the trees down there, I'm not a tree guy, as you'll know, but they are gorgeous. They're absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I don't know what sort of issues they create in terms of leaf drop, and I've certainly had.
So those
Bugs and slugs, yeah.
bugs and slugs can stay
Well,
in your home.
they're there anyway.
Is that what you're saying?
And no one's going to build a house on that park, so.
No, they definitely got feedback, Gary, do not touch those trees. They were planted by the forefathers and four mothers as well, and they're significantly important.
So what sort of park is this going to be called?
Same.
Still park.
Still park.
No, sorry. What's the category of park?
So combined.
Sports
Oh, it is
park.
sports park.
So it's not a destination park.
No,
I
sports
think,
park.
and that can be picked in the submission, because I'd like us through our submission process to zero back in with the Hamilton East Community Group and others. And I think you're right. I think we have a good conversation around Steele Park.
I mean, I'd suggest the park is one of the destinations in Hamilton East in terms of getting people there. A hell of a lot of kids go and play their cricket there. The parents go and get a coffee. And the world's not made of coffee, but it's a big draw card for people.
And the businesses around it get a deal. Absolutely.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Look, I just wanted to comment on the commitment of the external members of the panel. I don't think I've appreciated just how engaged a group can be. And this group took ownership and showed us around and made their comments known, and they've been very, very vocal. The thing that excites me about the plan is one very small thing, and that's on page 26. And that is the Grey Street Avenue of trees. The beautiful pink blossoms, because it's a contrast to the wonderful old 100-plus-a-year-old trees on Steele Park. Now, that's the sort of project that is not going to be of significant cost, because as I understand, we already have these trees at the Gardens Nursery. And I think that's an outstanding uplift of the village, continuing on to the wonderful Hamilton Gardens. But look, there are some other things that are occurring in Hamilton East that will be game changers. You've got the Waikato Regional Council land where they're sitting at the moment on the riverbank, high up, and if that was all taken away, what a wonderful site for a new hotel overlooking the river, or a commercial office block. I probably don't care one way or another. Then they've got their own development site further down Grey Street, where the liquor store is and where the wonderful Royal Hotel, where Leo and I went into the garden bar and had beers on a mini hot summer's day. So that's a major opportunity. And then there's the development on the riverbank that's already been consented. I've forgotten how many stories now, 7 or 8 stories.
At the end of Cook Street.
And Cook Street. So we've got a cluster of major development occurring around there. And then if you look at the other things that are occurring, River Kitchen is got a major reputation in the food area. Hayes Common, which is just re-established, is another significant hospitality offer. And then if you take Steele Park, the beauty of that, and I think Gary mentioned the old rundown pavilion, absolutely run down, but there are ways of making that pavilion look a lot more attractive without a huge amount of cost. Inside, it's a reminder of the 1920s, rugby studs on the wooden floors, and really it's disgraceful. And so these are the things that I think will enhance...
I don't find that disgraceful at all.
Enhance Hamilton East Village. And I think it's a good way to talk about it, Gary, because village does give that concept. It's like people spoke about Parnell Village.
Is this questions or is this?
Yes, yes, it is, and I have a comment, but carry on, Deputy Mayor.
So I've finished my comments, and I'll pass over now to...
So, yes, we were in questions, and you've had your debate, so we'll go back to questions so you don't get a further debate, Deputy Mayor. Oh, because I thought you were
That's fine. I
starting
mean,
with a
probably
question.
my question was, were you aware?
Were you aware? Yes, exactly.
Do you appreciate it?
Councillor King.
Did I ask? I didn't realise I had my hand up, but
Well, you usually do, so you see, I just write your name down.
thank you, Councillor O'Leary. What's proposed for the streets? I see we've got an Australian roading company coming in to recommend what to do, and I see we're putting gateways in.
Do we?
So we're on page 19.
Yes, the Osroad project.
Australia.
I'm just going to ask the GM if he would like to talk about that,
So
because it's quite a unique project.
So look, the Osroad project is just an opportunity. Osroads is the Australian sort of eroding research institute. They were looking for subject sites where they could come and apply their expertise free of charge. So they're coming and they're doing it in a workshop format to understand all the different needs for the road, and they're going to come up with some concept plans of how to manage the traffic, but also manage all the other things that go with a shopping centre like Hamilton East. So they were looking for this sort of example, and we put up our hand and said, come and pick us and try us as a research project.
Thank you.
Councillor Mullet?
So just very quickly, Chris, when I read that gateway thing, I thought it was just more Department of Fantasy words, and it was only conceptual. Are you talking about putting a gateway?
As in a gate.
Yeah, like, I mean, very rarely does a word mean what it means in these chambers. But in this time, are you talking about?
Open.
Look,
That'd be a good
probably other people can talk to that better than I, but to me a gateway is not a gate, but it's a change in the environment, and it might be designed with different things. Say you're in a roading sense, you're coming into a different sort of.
So it's a
traffic
sense of
environment.
arrival? Would you call it a sense of
arrival?
arrival? A sense of arrival.
Yeah.
Right.
Well done.
So that's
Well done.
Okay, thank you.
Right,
Yeah.
any further
I'm
questions?
moving.
So the Mayor is moving,
Second.
Councillor Gallagher is seconding. Right, Your Worship, would you like to speak on this?
I want to start by thanking those that were involved in developing up this draft, and that's Julie and Rachel and the teams, and also the people behind the scenes that actually don't get visibility, but a lot of work's gone on with various people to develop this. Secondly, I do endorse what the Deputy Mayor said. I've never been on a working group where we've had external members that have been so enthusiastic and so committed to being involved, to the point where they'd go home, think about it all, give some more feedback, site visits. They were really a really engaged group, and they represented a broad spectrum of those in Hamilton East, randomly selected type of people. And some of those people, I think, have gone the extra mile, and that was great. The other thing I would say is that it was with enthusiasm that some of the groups that work in Hamilton East approached this, and that was Lois's group, who meet at the Cook, and Julie was sent forth to have a few drinks and talk to them, and she survived that experience.
Yes.
But what was interesting, I guess, is, and this is a lesson I think that we can all learn, is in some ways it's quite simple to make people or enable people to feel valued, and that is to meet with them before you put pen to paper, hear what they've got to say, and make sure that their key issues are reflected in some way in the plan. And I think Lois's group have been active participants in this plan, and I think they are feeling happy about where it's landed. What's interesting about Hamilton East is that, dare I say it, people like it the way it is. They actually like it the way it is. Business people, people that live there, and people that visit there. What they want, though, is those features enhanced and valued. So the business community, and Gary asked some questions about that, it actually performs well for businesses, and they like being there, and they're loyal there, and it's quite a unique business environment, but it is commercially successful. In fact, some businesses have been there a very, very long time and are prosperous. So that was a message we got loud and clear. We want you to assist us, help us as a community to make it exactly how it is, but better, enhance those features. And that's why you'll note that the plan really does focus on that. In some ways it sounds quite straightforward and simple, but it's amazing once we got into it how some of these things had been forgotten. So, while some people say, you know, they're fluffy words and this, that and the other, I think if you look at the projects, many of these projects are already things that the council does. It dovetails into other plans that we are delivering. And the themes that I took away from it personally, talking to a lot of people there, was that we do see our places connecting very strongly to the river. We do want that to be a focal point for us. We do want to be the gateway to the gardens, and we do want to keep our arterial roading. But don't they? They don't want the roading to go away. They like the cars and they like the activity. And I think in some ways, Chair, I would contrast that with Frankton, where, you know, that continuous volume of people and activity has made a real difference to enabling Hamilton East to be pretty prosperous, actually. One of the features that I would invite councillors to look at carefully is the medical cluster. That has evolved naturally, but the district plan has, you know, made sure that that's going to be a focus. And if you look at the map on page, our page, I'm not sure, but it's 4 and 5 of the plan, where the different zoning areas are sort of identified and then there's hatched over the top. We had a lot of good feedback about medical stuff and how that is a really important medical cluster that is adding great value to the area and should be enhanced and promoted. The other thing, councillors, is this is truly, I guess, if you took a clean sheet of paper and you tried to map out a small kind of local neighbourhood, it's got all the elements already there. A village, commercial activity, some uniqueness about that commercial activity, high density living around the village. So the orange area around that is actually zoned high density and does have a high density living rating. You have a beautiful river and you have the world's best garden down the road and you have a major roading network. It's got all the elements that you would put into a blueprint if you started from scratch. So I actually think this is going to be a success story of this council, and I'd say in a decade's time, people will look back and thank those people who made this plan. Thanks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Further speakers, Councillor Gallagher.
It's my understanding that the Deputy Mayor seconded the motion, and it is appropriate he should do
okay,
so.
Not you.
Because I want to acknowledge the Deputy Mayor with the Mayor's leadership and work. And I have to say, in terms of process, because I'm a very fair-minded, and the Mayor knows occasionally I'm a bit critical, but I think in this situation, this is a really good example of good political leadership and a really example of what a Mayor's office in the new system should do in terms of, let's say, take the bull by the horns, showing some real political direction with respect to some very good professional staff, and acknowledge that, and then we actually are very clear, and then we involve the communities. I think this has been actually a very, very good project. I want to also sound a note and a warning from the past when previous councils have talked around Hamilton East and had nice words and nice publicly funded chats and all this. I never got to drink in the Royal, but the Royal Hotel existed. I remember it. I remember the Riverina. In fact, I had a lot of political meetings and did drink there. Euphrates House, the wonderful, beautiful monastery, the wall with the trees, the St John's Chapel. I think that the Deputy Mayor rushed out as it was being bowled over. And also some quite nice shops. The Grey Street had some character places and wonderful businesses. They are all gone. And my views on the short-sightedness and the tragedy of all that is well documented, and I'm not alone in that. So this kind of, to a degree, is I'm hoping, and there have been some good replacements, so let me acknowledge the Chow Hill design. So while I grieve of the loss of the wall, and I still grieve at least, thank goodness, it's not just a car yard. You know, it's actually an interesting, innovative building, and it's a good example. You talk to Ian McMichael and what he wants to, I think, do and what he's been doing, and, you know, all that medical precinct area. So there's actually some really good things are happening with private enterprise and private businesses. And I'm going to argue strongly that if we get this plan rocking and rolling, as they would say, this will be good for business and good for enterprise in Hamilton East. It will be brilliant for people who live there as well, and it will be one of, dare I say it, Hamilton Gardens, Hamilton East, Steel Park destination. And you only have to look at the Hamilton plan, the neighbourhood plan projects. And I think the challenge to staff and an incoming mayor is to make sure that you read the document, the incoming mayor, whoever that may be, and that they then sit down with the staff when they first lead the LTP and the annual plan process, and we make sure that some of the projects are in there and they'll be debated and we'll be under tight financial constraints. But I think a lot of this can actually happen through normal budgets as well. And this is really, I've got to say to the management executive team, this is about clear, concise political direction. I hope that carries on in the new council. And then we expect our management executive team to sort of pick this up and advance this. And within 10 years, I'm hoping we're going to have something even more special than Hamilton East is at present. And I've got to say, I compliment the Mayor and her team collectively and the community involvement and the community participation, I think, to date has been really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pascoe?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I think it is the justifiable role of council to act as an enabler for these types of plans, and then ultimately leave it to the community to determine whether or not they want to pick it up and run the success through. And this is the first community neighbourhood plan group that I've been on since I've been on council. And as has already been alluded to around the table, there have been some very, very positive input from both businesses and residents, and some of them long-term residents of the area in terms of intergenerational about what they want to do. There's almost an ancestry.com feel to the place in terms of, you know, families who have been there for a number of generations and still have made the decision to stay in Hamilton East. You know, when the study also picks out a few things. I can remember on the first day there's an old clock in the middle of the town which was donated by the Lions Club in 1957. Now I can't remember whether it still goes or not, but you know, there's an opportunity here to go back to the Lions and say, hey guys, it might be about time to replace that clock. And I'm sure that we would get the support. Steel Park, we mentioned earlier on about the trees. All the trees have names of families attached to them. We found an old plan that has got all the names of the founding families of Hamilton who actually planted and took responsibility for each one of those trees around the park. So there's kind of, in a country with a history of 150 years, there's actually some history here, and the history appears to be pretty much aligned to Ham East. We mentioned about the pavilion, and you know that was a surprise to us because I know that it is used still by the cricketers on the weekend, and I'm sure by other groups too. And it needs a good tidy up and a lick of paint and maybe a few other things to make it look like a pavilion that could be quite usable and friendly. So look, I'm quite optimistic that we're going to get some really good feedback, and I don't see this burdening council with a huge amount of expenditure, and yet I still see it going to work quite quickly. So let it roll, and I'm happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Mallett?
Thank you. There's a sort of a sweet irony in this thing in that an awful lot of Grey Street is littered with businesses operating out of residential properties, which our current district plan would say is verboten. And I don't know if those guys got there before the district plan or they're doing it under the cover of the no one turns a blind eye. But I mean, I think there's a good example here of how our district plan has got it very, very wrong and is focused too much on activity and not enough on impacts of businesses or land use. I won't be supporting this, not because I'm against the Hamilton East, and I agree with an awful lot of what people have said about the beauty of the place, and it does have a lovely culture over there. It is very pleasant. I have to say a lot of the growth is coming from the private sector. You look at Deloitte, you look at Ebbets, you look at, although unfortunately Hills are moving, I'm still very concerned that we will be heavy-handed, that we will, instead of, all we should be doing is assisting with the infrastructure and tidying up our own assets, and I assume the club rooms over there is our asset. But other than that, I think that the more we're involved, the more we will be slow, the more we will not react to what the market wants, and will stymie things in a way that we shouldn't be doing. So having said that, this looks to be one of the better of our community type plans we're trying to do, because we seem to be reasonably light-handed in this one.
Right, further speakers, councillor King.
Yeah, I will be supporting this. It's refreshing to see a plan. Firstly, it's great to see Julie's enthusiasm about it. And that the working group seem to get it, that they like it the way it is. And really, there's not a lot that you're fiddling with. You're just supporting what's there and enhancing what's there. It's great to see that. It's great to see that you understand that they like the cars and they like the roads, and we've got it, and we're not going to fiddle with that. We're not going to slow the traffic down. We're not going to the gateways there to lead people in. But it seems to me that over the decades, well before this council was ever in place, we've dumbed down roads like in Frankton, like in the main street here, and we've killed the city. And I think the lifeblood of that place is the road and the huge volume of traffic that goes through there. And so it's just good to see that you've got it, that they like it the way it is, and not to fiddle with it too much. Just a word of caution on the parking. Just don't take away parks if you can possibly help it. It just, once again, it'll just kill what's there. So what's there is good, what's there is working, and I feel this plan really is just feeding into what's there, and I think that's a great outcome.
I think pretty much everyone's spoken to the motion. Your worship, would you like to write a reply?
No.
No? Okay, we'll do that on the voices. All those in favour?
Aye.
Are there any against? Councillor Mallett is against. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Right, we're up to item 15, update on the HCC strategic plans, and that's the CEO in the hot seat.
Excuse me, Angela, I've got a skedaddle.
Yep, thanks.
One of your legacies.
Take the report as read.
Oh, okay.
I'm losing my voice.
Yes, you are, aren't you?
My apologies.
All right, so we'll go to questions. Are there any questions on the report? It's basically a stock take, where we're at.
I'll
Okay,
move.
there being no questions, your worship will move. Seconded by councillor Pascoe. Any debate, your worship?
No, I think it's just helpful to have summarised them, and I understand the staff are just tidying up the website. I look forward to that because it'll make it a lot easier.
Thank you.
Active Hamilton plan.
Right, any further speakers? There being no further speakers, I'll do that on the voices. All those in favour?
Aye.
Are there any against? That's carried.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's okay. Right, our strategic roundup report, item 16, page 219. Now, we don't have Blair in the...
No, so Blair wasn't able to stay for this item. Essentially it's an update report, so then the recommendation is to receive the report, essentially. If there are questions, we can probably do our best to answer them with the elected members that are here and staff. If there are matters that we can't answer and that we need Blair for, then we will.
We could defer the item.
I mean, look, and I'm not being critical because you make choices, and I think the choices you've made are good in terms of what we had to consider earlier on, get that. But if we could perhaps just take this particular item, and I know that Her Worship had indicated very strongly she wanted an update, re the Waikato plan to come back to council. But if in terms of the agenda setting process, if this particular report, along with the Waikato plan, could be given high priority up on the agenda next time.
So the Waikato plan is coming as a separate item?
Yes,
to
I'm
council?
aware of that.
It's coming to the council.
Yeah.
Council.
So we've got that, but I think look, and this is just as it is, there's, believe it or not, there's huge stuff in this
There is,
report.
yeah.
And I'm just wondering, Madam Chair, if when you do your agenda setting, if we could just, we receive it now, look around, but if we could actually just get this higher up next time.
All right, so are there any other questions then on the report? Councillor Pascoe?
I'm happy to move.
We're going to move it then. Seconded by Councillor Tooman. Is there any debate? Councillor Pascoe? No. No debate. I'll do those on the voices. All those in favour? Any against? It's carried. Right, our last item. Action list and pending HCC external submissions, and we're on page 229, and then you can all go home for dinner. There's a couple of, there's actually 3 pieces of work to staff are requesting to be deferred by a couple of months, or one of them only 1 month. And those are listed on page 229. Any questions, concerns there? Councillor Gallagher, you were going to raise the...
No, because I'm very keen to
Go home for
keep
dinner?
goodwill when I can hear a sense of grumpiness. Look,
Oh,
I'll
not
just,
from me.
Next month, I noticed the report does say at our next meeting that we'll get an update around some of those future-proof footprints
Yeah.
for the potential commuter rail stations at Frankton and the base, vis-a-vis an Auckland-Hamilton commuter link. And it'll be covered next month, so I'm happy with that.
So just on that, at the next S&P meeting, which is the last S&P meeting, we would be due to get the regional operational roundup report, and there are some items, not this one, so there are some, sorry, I'm kind of crossing up purposes here, but will we be able to cover what Councillor Gallagher is requesting in the next action list / regional report?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, good. Yes.
Lance told me to say that.
Okay, that's good. Are there any further questions? No, suddenly no one has anything to say. 10 to 7 is dinner time. All right, I'll move that the report be received. Seconded by Deputy Mayor.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Briggs. All those in favour?
Aye.
Are there any against? That's carried. Thank you. And I
Chair,
will-
can I just ask what happened to the Wi-Fi in your chair's report?
yes, that report's coming back.
Yeah.
You're going to get a report?
We're going to get a report.
Good. Is that coming to your next meeting?
It's coming to August, yeah.
Right, can I just ask that, in respect to that, and of course I couldn't be here for that item, that I do hope that report does encompass the matters that are in the CCTP in relation to Wi-Fi, because it would be stupid, sorry, such a strong word, to do one aspect of that when Wi-Fi is actually in the CCTP as well. So I just raised that, may as well cover one item, you know, rather than staff running away and doing separate reports.
Okay, thank you.
I have another important matter to raise,
Oh, yes, Councillor Gallagher?
and that's to compliment you on your ability to chair this
To
truly
endure.
marathon session. Well done.
To endure.
Well done.
With a sore knee,
Councillor.
with a sore
I
knee.
know, and I recognise
Yeah,
all
with a sore knee.
the other stuff.
I
yeah.
feel like I've been
Yes.
beaten up, chewed up and spat out.
And you're still smiling.
Wait,
I did
Thank
want
you.
to talk about Earth Hour, but I've been overruled.
I've done many Earth hours.
Yes.